Well, hello there, Jeremiah Poop, your friendly colonial tour guide at your service, as always, and currently sneaking a little secret Slurpee Big Gulp in an alley here. Don't tell Mountain Dew I'm cheating on them, but I make a little clandestine rendezvous in the alley with my Slurpee. But feeling a little emotional because at this time of year, the tours change a little. It's in the summer, it's a lot of families, on vacation. Then when the kids go back to school, the families all go home, and you start getting a lot of senior citizens on cruise ships, the Leaf Peepers and stuff, and they're very nice too. But today on my tour, I had an elderly woman on my tour, and she came up to me after, and she said, my husband and I went on your tour 8 years ago, and we just loved it. And she said for years after, we still laughed about it and chuckled over your name and stuff. And she said we were going to go on the tour this fall too, on the cruise, and he passed away a couple months ago. And then she apparently decided to bring her friend, her former college roommate actually, on the tour instead, and they enjoyed it. But she did get a little choked up, and she said, I'm having fun, but I just miss my husband so much. And she started to cry, and I'm like, there and stuff. I didn't really know what to say. And she's like, can I hug you? And I was like, of course you can, but I do want to give you a word of warning. I've been wearing this costume all week, and I haven't had a chance to really clean it, so I've been sweating it all week, and I might smell a little rank. And she's like, I don't care, I just want to hug you. So she hugged me, and then she's like, oh, yeah, you do kind of smell pretty bad. So I was like, I told you. But it reminded me a little of an experience I had a few years ago. My aunt, Siobhan, and I always had a tradition from the time I was a little kid of going to holiday pops, at Symphony Hall. And good God almighty. Sorry, hold on. And, and we did this pretty much until she died. And then I didn't go for a couple of years because of COVID and stuff. But in December of 2022, I decided I was going to go to a holiday pops. And I just bought a ticket by myself just because I wanted to relive the feeling. And I'm like, even if I'm there by myself. And when I got there, I kind of regretted it because I felt very, kind of pathetic and sad just sitting there surrounded by all these happy families, with my ghosts of Christmas past, so to speak. And there were two empty seats next to me, one on the aisle and the one in between me and the aisle seat. And finally this elderly woman with a cane came in and sat down, and we started chatting. And she explained that she had always gone to holiday pops with her husband for years. It was their little tradition, and he died a decade ago, and yet she still would always buy the seat next to her as a seat for him, just because she said, I like to pretend he's still sitting in the chair there, even though it's been, 10 years. And she said, that probably sounds deranged and pathetic, I'm sure. And I said, not at all. And I explained that I used to come with my aunt, so I was kind of reliving my own memories. And I said, Queen Victoria, when her husband Prince Albert died, she still had his place set at the table for the rest of her life, and she lived another 40 years. I said, I don't think that's pathetic. I think that's a really beautiful gesture, actually. And we kind of bonded a little there. And she said to me, finally, she's like, would you like to sit next to me? And I said, I would be very honored to do so. But I said, won't your husband mind? And she's like, well, probably, but there's not a damn thing you can do about it now, is there? So I slid down a seat and sat next to her, and we had a great time. And during intermission, we even went to the bar and got some wine, and we drank a little toast. I said, to empty chairs and the people who used to sit in them, gone but not forgotten. And she said, here in spirit. And we drank a little toast, and she just told me a little bit about herself. She had, her kids lived in California and Texas, so she didn't really get to see them as much as she'd like. And she told me she was going to spend Christmas with her sister in Osterville on Cape Cod. And I said, we'll have a good Christmas. And we were having a fine old time. And she's like, you know what, I want to do a selfie with you and put it on my Instagram so people can see that I'm not some pathetic old woman, that I'm still having a good time here. And I said, I'm surprised you have an Instagram. Most people your age, no offense, are just on Facebook. And she's like, oh yes, my grandchildren say I put the gram in Instagram. And we did a little selfie, and I had my little bow tie and suit on, and she posted that. It was cute. And then we went back and enjoyed the rest of the show together. And then when we were walking out of Symphony Hall, she looked at her phone, and then she looked at me, and she said, this will sound strange perhaps, but she says, your name, Jeremiah, and she said, I don't even know how to pronounce this. She's like, Poupée or Poopy or Poop? And I'm like, yeah, it's the last one. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And she said, well, actually my grandson saw the picture, and he says you were his high school class's ghost tour guide last spring. And I'm like, oh wow. I said, well, and she's like, yeah, he lives in Texas. And I said, I'm amazed he recognized me because I'm not wearing my costume. And she's like, oh, I don't think he or anyone in his group will ever forget you. And I said, yeah, probably not if, you know, I have a name like Jeremiah Poop. And she said, well, there's that. But she said, apparently you got his whole high school class stuck on your roof, actually, when you decided to take the ghost tour group up to the roof of your old apartment building in Beacon Hill, and you got locked up there. And she said he says to tell you he says hi, and that he's one of the boys who got soaked when he pissed off the roof into the wind, even after you warned him not to. And I said, well, told him, you know, don't piss in the wind. But anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.